She came alone, in boots scuffed by years of labor, wearing a jacket more memory than fabric. June Maddox didn't look like someone meant for the front row. Not to the PTA, not to the principal, not to a town that had always judged more than it listened. But her son stood at the top of his class, his name announced to cheers that didn't yet know the full story. Because when 6 quiet men in dark suits stepped forward, they didn't come for Ethan. They came for her. They came to honor the woman who had once trained them to survive, to lead, to stand tall without being seen. The woman the town had tried to tuck away in the back. What happened next didn't just shake the ceremony. It shattered everything they thought they knew about pride, presence, and the power of quiet perseverance. This isn't just a graduation story. It's a reckoning, a tribute, a reminder that true leadership rarely sits at the podium, but it always shows up in the shadows, steady and unshakable. The white canopy fluttered like a surrender flag over the rows of folding chairs, each one meticulously aligned under the June sun. June Maddox arrived early, her boots crunching over the fresh mulch that lined the campus pathway. She carried nothing but a faded program and the weight of 17 years of quiet defiance. The chair in the 4th row had her name taped neatly across its back. Maddox, printed in block letters by the usher's trembling hand. She sat, folded her hands, and waited. The crowd began to filter in. A sea of pastel dresses, polished loafers, and shimmering jewelry. June's khaki jacket, worn thin at the shoulders, stood out like a scar. She didn't mind. She'd long since stopped minding the glances, the whispers, the way Mrs. Bellamy, the president of the PTA, had sniffed as if June's presence reeked of something unsavory. Let them look. Let them judge. She'd earned this seat. Her son, Ethan, had earned it. But when the security guards arrived, 2 men in crisp suits, their voices smooth as polished stone, June's fingers tightened around the program. "Ma'am, we need to relocate you for VIP seating." The words slithered between them, polite but final. June didn't protest. She stood, gathered her things, and let them lead her back, row by row, until she was seated in the 10th row, beneath a sagging banner that read "Congratulations class of 2024." 17 years earlier, June had met Marco under the fluorescent lights of Bailey's Auto and Tire. Her car had stalled on the way to her part-time job at the diner, and Marco, grease-stained hands, laugh lines etched around his eyes, had fixed it for free. "Call me if it acts up again," he'd said, handing her a business card with his number scribbled in pencil. It had acted up. She'd called. And so began a love built not on grand gestures, but on late-night oil changes, shared burritos, and the quiet certainty that they'd carve a life from the scraps others discarded. Marco's death had not been grand. A snapped cable, a crushed body, and a lawsuit that dissolved like sugar in water. The town had offered sympathy cards and sidelong glances, but June had only one thought: protect Ethan. She'd worked double shifts, studied mechanics by flashlight, and taught her son to laugh at the whispers. "They're not talking about you," she'd say. "They're talking about their own smallness." The ceremony began. The choir sang. The principal droned on about excellence and tradition. June's eyes never left the stage, where Ethan stood tall among his classmates, his dark curls brushed back, his robe perfectly pressed. She'd ironed it herself at 3 a.m., her hands steadying when his slept. Then came the valedictorian's name, Ethan Maddox. The crowd surged forward, but June's breath caught. Ethan stepped down from the stage, not toward the podium, but toward the 6 men standing at the edge of the crowd. Men in plain dark suits, their posture rigid, eyes scanning the perimeter. June's throat tightened. She recognized them, the SEALs from her civilian emergency training program, the ones who'd called her guide. The tallest man stepped forward, holding a patch, green canvas, embroidered with the number 6 and the word guide. He handed it to the usher, his voice steady. "We're here to honor the woman who taught us to lead without rank, to save without fanfare." Asterisk. His gaze landed on June. Asterisk. She belongs in the front row. The crowd erupted. Applause thundered. Ethan walked past the podium, past the principal's reddening face, and knelt beside June. "Mom," he whispered, They're saluting you. She didn't cry. She couldn't. The tears would have been too small for the moment. Afterward, the principal resigned. Mrs. Bellamy's name vanished from donation boards. Ethan's speech, raw, unapologetic, a rebuke wrapped in gratitude, went viral. My mother didn't need a front row, Keith said. She needed a world that stopped looking down. June returned to her garage, to the familiar hum of tools and the scent of engine oil. Students began showing up, not for pity, but for advice. Your mom taught us what courage looks like, one girl said, handing June a drawing of the valedictorian's podium. The seals disappeared as quietly as they'd arrived, but weeks later, a package arrived at June's door. Inside was a framed photo of the 6 men, Ethan and her, taken that graduation day. The caption read, "To guide, who showed us the way." Years later, when Ethan graduated from college, June wore the same khaki jacket. This time, the seat beside her was occupied not by strangers, but by the children of those who'd once turned away. They asked her questions, not with pity, but with curiosity. How did you do it? June smiled, her hands still calloused from decades of work. You don't do it, she said. You outlast, you outwork, and you let your quietness become a language they can't ignore. The empty chair in the 4th row remained at every graduation, a silent testament. Not to June's absence, but to her presence, the kind that reshapes a world without raising its voice. And somewhere, Marco's laugh echoed in the clatter of tools, in the steady click of June's boots against the garage floor, in the quiet certainty that some seats are meant to be filled not by those who take them, but by those who earn the right to stand beside them. In a world that measures worth by silk and status, June Maddox shows up in a faded khaki jacket, the same one she wore while rebuilding her life after tragedy, while teaching her brilliant son to outshine the judgment of a town that never saw his potential. But when the guards try to push her to the back row at his graduation, 6 silent men in suits step forward. They don't just restore her seat, they rewrite what it means to belong. This is the story of a woman who turned quiet persistence into a revolution, a boy who learned to speak truth to power, and the 6 strangers who risked everything to say, "We see you." Want to see how quiet strength can shake a town to its core? Read the full story now, where a single act of defiance turns a graduation ceremony into a reckoning. Click below to witness June Maddox's silent storm, Ethan's fearless speech, and the 6 men who proved that who you are matters more than what they say. Tag someone who's ever been underestimated, someone who's carried weight in silence, someone who needs to see that even the quietest person can rewrite the rules. Read the full story of June Maddox, the mechanic, the mother, the mentor, whose silent strength turned a ceremony into a revolution. Click below to witness how a woman without title earned the loudest salute, how her son turned his speech into a legacy, and how 6 men in suits taught a crowd the true meaning of honor. Tag someone who's ever been overlooked. Share this if you believe some heroes build legacies without ever asking for applause. Because sometimes the most powerful seat in the room isn't in the front. It's beside the one who earned it.